Okay, so chapter 11, we're going to look at the monetary system, and this is really when things start to get pretty interesting because we're going to develop a much better understanding of the world we live in and some of the main players in terms of policy, especially what we see happening right now. So, you've probably at least heard something about the Federal Reserve or the Fed, and you may have wondered A, who they are, and why their actions are such a big deal. So you open up a major newspaper, you're online at the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, someplace like that. In the past month, you're very likely to have seen something about the Federal Reserve Bank and the exceptional actions that it's been taking. So in this section of the course, we're going to learn a little bit about what they are and what they do. So as per usual, I've got a number of learning objectives here. So you can kind of go through here one by one after you've finished. We'll step through them one by one as we go through the lectures. But when you're done, you want to come back and make sure that you understand the things that I'm hoping that you're able to do related to each learning objective. So this is just a little introduction to the topic. And so one thing I want you to think about, I want you to think about the answer to this question now, and then come back after you've learned something about what money is, and sort of ask yourself this question: what would it mean to you if you had no money? And so think about that now. What would life look like if I didn't have any money? And what do you think money is? And money is very interesting in economics because it's something that's hard to give you a really specific definition about what it is exactly. And so we're in fact going to define money more by what it does as opposed to specifically what it is. So you might think that's a little ridiculous. Say, I know what money is. It's the paper bills that I carry around, and the coins are money. Well, that's one form of money, but what is that exactly, right? So that's what we're going to try to figure out in this first part of this chapter, is to understand exactly what is money. And as we'll see, money and this thing, inflation, are linked together. So we've talked about inflation before, or at least learned how to calculate it. And so we're going to think about what determines inflation, in particular very high inflation, or what we call hyperinflation. And so if you look back through the history books, inflation has actually played a really key role in a number of parts of history. So in particular, after the World Wars, so you had World War I and World War II. Now, I'm not trying to claim that inflation had anything to do with those particular events. It had nothing to do with the world wars themselves, but it had a lot to do with how things evolved in different economies after the war. So some economies experienced very rapid inflation following the wars, and that had implications for those countries moving forward. There was also, even earlier than that, you had the French Revolution in the late 1700s, and inflation played a really big role in what was happening there. Again, it's not necessarily the main cause of events, but it played a key role. And it's interesting to think about the role that money has played throughout history and how those things may have influenced how different parts of our world sort of developed post these episodes. So it's a very interesting chapter, interesting part of the course. And so we'll move on next to learning objectives.